Please, pay for this medicine for my mother. I promise I'll pay you back when I'm rich." The millionaire looked at her and said quietly, "You don't need to pay me with money, just with a dream you never give up on." In a world full of struggles and second chances, every story hides a lesson worth learning. This is Afnan Art, where ordinary lives become extraordinary tales. Sit back, open your heart, and let the story begin. The early morning wind brushed through the narrow streets of Atlanta. Old wooden houses leaned toward one another like tired souls. In one of them lived Amara Johnson, a young woman whose days began before sunrise and ended long after midnight. Her mother, Gloria, lay on a small bed by the window, breathing softly, her heart condition getting worse each day. Amara tied her worn-out sneakers, grabbed her jacket, and whispered, "Hold on, Mama. I'll get your medicine today." She didn't know how yet, but she had to. Outside, the city moved fast, unaware of her struggle. Amara worked at a small diner on the corner of Peachtree Avenue, cleaning tables, serving coffee, and smiling at customers who rarely remembered her face. Every tip she earned went into a small jar at home labeled for Mom's medicine. But no matter how hard she worked, the jar never filled fast enough. That afternoon, the manager called her over. "Amara, you're staying late tonight. The dishwasher quit again." She nodded. She always did. While others went home to rest, she stayed to scrub greasy pans and count her coins under the flickering kitchen light. When the clock hit midnight, Amara finally stepped outside. The air was cold, but her heart was warm with one thought. She finally had enough for the medicine. She smiled to herself, clutching the small envelope of cash. "Tomorrow, Mama will get better," she whispered as she walked through the quiet streets. She didn't notice the torn corner of the envelope, and she didn't see the dollar bills slipping out, one by one, carried away by the night wind. The night fell heavy over Atlanta. A thin drizzle painted the streets silver, and the sound of distant sirens echoed between the old brick buildings. Amara walked faster, her worn shoes splashing through shallow puddles as she held the small envelope close to her chest. Inside it was everything she had, the hope for her mother's life. She had worked 3 shifts this week, skipped meals, and slept barely 2 hours a night. Her hands were cracked from soap and bleach, her back sore from bending over dirty dishes. But in her heart, there was only one thought: Mama needs her medicine. As she reached her small house, she could hear her mother's soft coughing from inside. The sound broke her heart every time. Amara sat beside her mother and gently held her hand. "Mama, I'll go to the pharmacy tomorrow morning," she whispered. Gloria smiled weakly. "You've done too much already, baby. Don't worry about me." Amara smiled, forcing her tears back. "Just rest. Everything will be fine soon." That night, the rain grew stronger. Amara sat by the window, watching the streetlights blur behind the raindrops. She prayed silently, asking for strength. When dawn arrived, she changed into her old gray jacket, tied her hair into a bun, and stepped outside into the misty morning air. The pharmacy was 6 blocks away, Brookfield Pharmacy, a small place near a busy intersection. She walked quickly, shielding herself from the drizzle with a folded newspaper. Inside her pocket, she kept checking the envelope, afraid it might vanish. It was the only thing standing between her mother's pain and a little relief. When she entered the pharmacy, the warm air smelled faintly of medicine and coffee. Shelves stood tall, filled with colorful boxes she could barely read. Behind the counter, a young cashier smiled politely. Amara handed over the prescription slip. "Heart medicine," the cashier said softly, typing on the computer. "That'll be $72. Amara nodded and reached into her jacket pocket. Her fingers searched for the envelope. Then again, and again, her chest tightened. She checked every pocket, her jeans, her bag, even her shoes. Nothing. Her breath became short. Her eyes darted around the floor, the counter, her path to the door. It was gone. "No, no, please, it has to be here," she murmured, her voice trembling. People turned to look. The cashier frowned, uncertain. "I'm sorry, miss. We can't give out medicine without payment." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "I had the money. I swear I had it." Her voice broke. It wasn't just about the medicine. It was about hope, dignity, and the only promise she had left to her mother. She crouched down, searching under the counter. Her hands trembled as tears dropped onto the cold tile floor. Outside, the rain kept falling. At that very moment, the bell above the pharmacy door rang. A tall man stepped in, his presence quiet but commanding. He wore a dark trench coat, his shoes shining despite the rain. He was Elijah Carter, a millionaire entrepreneur visiting Atlanta for a conference. To everyone else, he was just another rich man. To Amara, he would soon become a turning point in her life. Elijah noticed the scene at the counter, the trembling woman, the tears, the desperate look in her eyes. He could have ignored it. He could have walked past, bought his vitamins, and left. But something in her eyes stopped him. He waited for a moment, listening as she whispered, "Please, it's for my mother. She's sick. I'll pay you back, I promise, one day." Her voice was soft, but filled with truth. Elijah felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Compassion that broke through the cold armor of wealth. The cashier looked at him, confused. Elijah reached for his wallet and said calmly, "Add her medicine to my bill." Amara froze. Her eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "Sir, you don't have to." He interrupted gently, his tone calm but firm. "I know I don't, but I want to." He turned toward her and added, "Don't pay me back with money. Just promise me you'll never give up on your dreams." Amara could only whisper, "Thank you." But Elijah didn't wait for her thanks. He paid, took his things, and left quietly. As the door closed behind him, Amara stood there, still shaking, holding the small bag of medicine. She didn't even know his name. But in that brief moment, a single act of kindness had changed everything. When she stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was breaking open, revealing a thin line of morning light. Amara looked up, her eyes reflecting both pain and hope. And deep inside, she made a vow. One day, she would meet that man again, not as a beggar, but as an equal. The morning light crept slowly through the clouds, washing the city in pale gold. Amara walked home from the pharmacy with trembling hands, the small bag of medicine pressed close to her heart. Her body was exhausted, but her soul felt strangely alive. Someone, a complete stranger, had chosen kindness over indifference. She didn't even know his name, but she would never forget his face. When she reached home, her mother was sitting up weakly, waiting. "Did you get it, baby?" Gloria asked, her voice faint. Amara nodded, smiling through tears. "Yes, Mama. I got it. You'll start feeling better soon." She poured a glass of water, helped her mother take the pills, and watched her breathe easier for the first time in weeks. But when she turned away, the image of the man at the pharmacy stayed in her mind. His calm eyes, the way he spoke. She whispered softly to herself, "One day, I'll make him proud of what he did." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every second at the pharmacy. How did the money disappear? Had someone taken it? Or did it simply fall into the darkness of the street? She searched every inch of her jacket, every corner of her bag. Nothing. It was as if the universe had taken it away just so her path could cross his. Over the next few days, Amara worked harder than ever. Her mother began to recover slowly, but the medical bills didn't stop coming. The diner where she worked was always noisy, filled with impatient customers and the clatter of silverware. Sometimes she would look out the window and see people driving expensive cars, laughing, free of worry. And she would whisper, "One day, I'll sit in one of those cars too." Life in Atlanta was never easy for women like her. The city had a way of reminding you where you stood, with your accent, your skin, your clothes. Yet Amara refused to let humiliation sink in. When her boss scolded her, she stayed silent. When her coworkers mocked her dreams, she smiled. She carried Elijah's words like a flame inside her chest. Never give up on your dreams. Weeks turned into months. Her mother's health stabilized, and Amara began saving again. But this time, she wasn't saving for medicine. She was saving for her future. Late one night, while wiping the diner's tables, she overheard two customers talking. "Have you heard about the business grants for minority entrepreneurs?" "Yeah, but they only pick people with good ideas. Not just anyone." Amara's heart beat faster. She cleaned their tables slower than usual, pretending to work, just to catch more of their words. A grant. A chance. A door she never knew existed. The next morning, she walked straight to the public library. It had been years since she'd stepped inside. The scent of old paper and quiet air felt like a different world. She searched the computers for hours, scrolling through pages of information about small business funding. Her eyes widened when she found one labeled Dream Builders Grant for Young Entrepreneurs. It offered startup money for people with strong ideas. No degree required, just courage and proof of concept. Amara sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. She didn't have much, no college diploma, no investors, not even a proper laptop. But she had something stronger, a story, a reason, and a promise. That night, she wrote her idea on scraps of paper. A line of natural skincare made for dark skin tones, using ingredients her mother once taught her from home remedies. She named it Soulshine Beauty. She didn't know if anyone would believe in her idea, but she would believe enough for everyone. The next weeks became a blur of work and hope. By day, she served coffee. By night, she studied online marketing, branding, and skincare chemistry through free tutorials. Sometimes she fell asleep at the library desk, waking only when the janitor turned off the lights. One evening, as she walked home, the city lights flickering above her, she thought of the man from the pharmacy again. She didn't even know his name, but somehow, he was part of every step she took now. He was the silent reason she kept moving forward. She looked up at the skyline, her reflection blending with the glass towers. Someday, she whispered, I'll meet you again. And when I do, I'll be the woman you told me to become. The wind carried her words into the night, a small, steady prayer that destiny would soon answer. The sun rose over New York City, painting the skyline in shades of amber and gold. Inside the glass tower of Carter Innovations, the city's noise was nothing more than a distant hum behind thick windows. Elijah Carter stood by the window of his corner office, staring down at the streets that moved like rivers of steel and people. From the outside, he looked like the definition of success: sharp suit, perfect tie, a man who owned his future. But deep inside, he felt an emptiness money could never touch. He had built his empire from the ground up: tech companies, smart home devices, logistics. Everything he touched turned to gold. Yet lately, his mornings had begun to feel heavier, his victories quieter. The boardroom applause no longer thrilled him. The champagne tasted dull, and the nights felt longer than ever. Sometimes, in the silence of his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, he would remember the woman from the pharmacy in Atlanta. He didn't even know her name, yet her voice lingered like a song that refused to fade. Please, sir, it's for my mother. I promise, one day, I'll pay you back. Those words had followed him across states, across months. He had helped thousands through charity foundations, but that one moment, that trembling voice, had been different. Elijah wasn't a man who believed in fate. He believed in logic, in deals, in measurable outcomes. But every time he thought about giving up on people, he saw her again in his memory, a soaked woman in a torn jacket, eyes full of courage and shame all at once. And something about that night had softened him. He began quietly donating more to healthcare programs in low-income areas. Not for publicity. He made sure no reporter ever knew, but because somewhere out there, he hoped that woman's mother had survived. Maybe she had smiled again. Maybe the medicine worked. Maybe that small act had mattered after all. That evening, as the city lights turned on one by one, Elijah sat alone in his office. The room was filled with awards and trophies, yet it all felt meaningless. He leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, "What's the point of success if you can't share it with someone who truly understands struggle?" At that moment, his assistant, Marcus Hill, entered. "Sir, your flight to Los Angeles is at 8. The investors' dinner is confirmed." Elijah nodded absently. "Thank you, Marcus. You can go." When the door closed, Elijah looked once more at the skyline. He had the world at his feet, but none of it made his heart move. The only time he had truly felt alive in years was that night in Atlanta, standing beside a stranger who had nothing but faith. As days turned into weeks, the world around Elijah continued spinning in luxury and speed. Magazines printed his face on their covers. Reporters called him the modern Midas. But none of them knew that in the quiet corners of his soul, he longed for something real, something pure, something human. One afternoon, while attending a charity gala in Washington, a speaker took the stage, a young entrepreneur telling her story of perseverance and gratitude. Her name was unfamiliar, but her words pierced straight into Elijah's heart. She spoke about hunger, hardship, and a promise she made to a stranger years ago. She ended with a line that made Elijah freeze. "Someone once told me, 'Don't pay me back with money. Pay me back by never giving up on your dreams. And that's exactly what I did. Elijah's chest tightened. It couldn't be. The memory of that sentence, the rhythm of her voice, the emotion behind her words, it was the same. He leaned forward, trying to see her face more clearly. But before he could, the crowd stood and applauded. The lights shifted, and when the applause faded, she was gone. That night, Elijah couldn't sleep. He replayed every second of that speech in his mind, her tone, her determination. It couldn't be coincidence. The universe, it seemed, was whispering something back to him. He called Marcus. Find out who spoke at the Dream Builders conference today. The young woman. I need her name. Marcus hesitated. Yes, sir. Right away. When the report arrived the next morning, Elijah's eyes stopped on the page. Name, Amara Johnson, founder of Soulshine Beauty. His heart skipped a beat. He whispered the name as if it were something sacred. Amara. He searched her company online. A growing brand built from nothing, celebrated for empowering women of color. Her photo appeared beside an article. A smiling woman in a white blazer, confidence glowing in her eyes. He stared at the screen for a long time, then leaned back in his chair and smiled for the first time in months. So, he murmured softly, you kept your promise. Elijah didn't know it yet, but fate was already setting the stage for their reunion, a meeting that would test both their hearts and their pasts. And somewhere in the city, under the same sky, Amara was working late, unaware that the man she once begged for help was now quietly looking for her. New York City shimmered like a crown of light against the night sky. Down on Fulton Street, in a small but elegant office surrounded by boxes of skincare products, Amara Johnson stood at the window watching the rain fall against the glass. The name Soulshine Beauty glowed softly in gold letters on the wall behind her. It was her dream, and now it was real. Her company had started from her mother's old kitchen recipes, natural creams, oils, and soaps made for women with dark skin tones. At first, she mixed them by hand, sealing each jar with her own labels printed on a second-hand printer. She sold them through social media, offering free samples, sharing her story. People didn't just buy her products, they bought her courage. They felt her honesty, her struggle, her light. Months turned into years. What began as a home business grew into a movement. Her brand appeared in local magazines, then national news. Orders poured in from across the country. Influencers, celebrities, and beauty editors started calling. But behind every success, Amara still carried the same vow she made years ago, to never forget where she came from. Her office was filled with memories, a photo of her mother smiling beside the first Soulshine jar, a Bible open on her desk, and above it all, a small sticky note with a quote written in neat handwriting. Don't pay me back with money. Just never give up on your dreams. She had written those words the night after the pharmacy. They had become her compass ever since. One evening, as Amara reviewed reports with her assistant Maya, she felt something stirring inside her. Maya smiled proudly. Congratulations, boss. We just got accepted for the American Entrepreneurs Summit next month. You'll be speaking on stage with the country's biggest names. Amara froze for a second. Me? On that stage? Maya laughed. Yes, you. You're one of the most inspiring stories this year. Amara leaned back, trying to take it in. She had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, her heart felt strangely heavy. She whispered, I wish Mama could see this. She's proud, Maya said softly. You made her proud every single day. Amara smiled, but her eyes glistened. She turned to the window and watched the city lights blur into streaks of gold. Somewhere out there, she believed, the man who once helped her might still remember her. She often imagined meeting him again, not to repay the money, but to thank him for saving her spirit. A week later, as preparations for the summit began, Amara worked tirelessly. She practiced her speech late into the night, rewriting every word until it felt true to her journey. But every time she reached the ending, she would pause and stare at that quote again, the one he said to her. Don't pay me back with money. Her voice would tremble each time she read it aloud. On the other side of the city, in his penthouse office overlooking Manhattan, Elijah Carter scrolled through the list of keynote speakers for the same event. When he saw the name Amara Johnson, his heart jumped. It wasn't coincidence anymore. It was destiny knocking twice. He smiled quietly, remembering the trembling voice from years ago. Seems like the universe remembered, he said softly. In the following days, Elijah kept his schedule clear. No meetings, no distractions. He didn't plan to announce his presence. He simply wanted to see her, to hear her voice again, and maybe, if fate allowed, to tell her what her courage had done to him. The day of the summit arrived. The Grand Hall in downtown Manhattan sparkled with chandeliers and polished marble floors. Banners of American Entrepreneurs Summit 2030 hung proudly above the crowd. Businessmen, investors, and journalists filled the room. Amara stood backstage, her palms cold, her heart pounding. Maya handed her a glass of water. "You'll do amazing," she said. Amara nodded, though she could barely breathe. She whispered a small prayer. "Please, let my story touch someone who needs hope." When her name was called, applause thundered across the room. Amara stepped onto the stage, the bright lights blinding at first. She looked out over hundreds of faces, faces that once would have intimidated her. But now, she spoke with calm power. She told them about the nights she went hungry, the days she felt invisible, and the moment in a small pharmacy that changed everything. When she spoke about the man who had helped her, the room fell silent. She didn't say his name, she didn't even know it. But the emotion in her voice painted the picture clear. Her words echoed through the hall like a melody of grace and gratitude. And in the front row, sitting quietly in a dark suit, Elijah Carter felt his chest tighten. He hadn't breathed since she started talking. Every word, every tone, it was her. The woman he had helped was now standing under the spotlight, glowing like the sunrise he'd been waiting for all his life. When she finished, the audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. But Elijah didn't move. He just watched her, proud, silent, and overwhelmed. As she bowed slightly, her eyes swept across the crowd, and for a brief second, they met his. The world seemed to stop. Her breath caught. His heart skipped. Neither of them smiled, but both understood. The past had finally found its way home. The applause still echoed in the grand hall long after Amara stepped off the stage. She walked down the side corridor, her heart racing, her palms damp with a mix of adrenaline and disbelief. The moment had felt surreal, standing before hundreds, sharing the pain she once tried to hide, and seeing them rise to their feet in respect. But deep inside, something else stirred. That look, that man in the front row, those eyes, calm, sharp, and filled with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She couldn't explain it, but when her gaze met his, her chest tightened. For a second, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. It couldn't be him. The man from the pharmacy was a fleeting figure from another lifetime, a stranger who had appeared and vanished like a dream. And yet, those eyes, that stillness. Her assistant Maya rushed over, hugging her. "You did it. Amara, you just owned the entire room." Amara smiled faintly, still half-dazed. "Thank you, Maya. I think I saw someone." "Someone? Who?" "I don't know," Amara whispered, glancing back toward the stage doors. "Maybe someone from the past." Meanwhile, in the lobby, Elijah Carter stood near the exit, surrounded by colleagues and reporters. People were eager to talk to him. The tech visionary, the investor, the man who built half the innovations on display that day. But for the first time in years, he wasn't listening. His mind was somewhere else, trapped in that moment when Amara's eyes met his. He had spent years trying to forget that night in Atlanta, not because it was painful, but because it had felt too real, too human for the life he lived. And now, here she was, not a fragile girl begging for help, but a woman who had become a light. "Elijah," his assistant Marcus called. "They're waiting for you in the press room." Elijah blinked, pulled from his thoughts. "Cancel it," he said simply. Marcus looked confused. "Cancel the press? Sir, just do it." He walked toward the side corridor, following an instinct stronger than reason. Backstage, Amara was gathering her papers when she heard a familiar voice. "Miss Johnson." She turned, and there he was, older, calmer, more refined, but unmistakably the same man. For a second, she froze. The world around her fell silent. "Do you remember me?" Elijah asked softly. Amara stared, her lips parting slightly. She didn't speak, afraid the moment might shatter if she did. He smiled gently. Brookfield Pharmacy. A rainy night in Atlanta. Her breath caught. Tears blurred her vision before she could stop them. "It's you," she whispered. "You were the man who helped me that night." Elijah nodded. "And you kept your promise." Amara's voice trembled. "I never forgot your words. You told me not to pay you back with money. So I didn't. I built something instead." He smiled, his eyes glistening. "And you built it beautifully." For a few seconds, neither spoke. The hum of the conference faded into nothing. Just two souls meeting again where fate had once planted a seed. "I wanted to thank you," she finally said. "You saved my mother's life." Elijah's tone softened. "No, Amara. You did that. I only paid for a bottle of medicine. You paid with faith." She laughed softly through her tears. "You sound exactly the same." He tilted his head, smiling. "And you don't. You sound stronger now." A silence hung between them, not awkward, but alive. It carried memories, gratitude, and something unspoken neither dared to name. Finally, Elijah said, "Would you let me buy you a cup of coffee? No strings, just two old stories catching up." Amara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'd like that." They walked together down the marble corridor toward the cafe inside the building. People turned their heads as they passed. The millionaire everyone knew, and the woman whose story had just touched the nation. But for them, the world had faded away. Over coffee, they talked for hours. Amara told him about her struggles, about losing everything, about starting Soulshine Beauty with nothing but hope and prayer. Elijah listened quietly, never interrupting, only asking small questions that made her smile. Then she asked, "And you? How have you been?" He paused, staring at the steam rising from his cup. "I've built everything I ever wanted," he said slowly. "And somehow, I feel like I built it all alone." Amara looked at him with empathy that words couldn't describe. "Maybe," she said softly, "you were just waiting for something that wasn't built yet." Their eyes met again, and for the first time in years, Elijah felt peace. When the cafe lights dimmed and the night deepened, he walked her to her car. "Thank you for saying yes," he said. "Thank you for finding me," she replied. As she drove away, Elijah stood beneath the streetlights, watching the taillights fade into the city. He smiled to himself, the kind of smile a man wears when he knows life has just turned a new page. For Amara, the drive home was silent except for her heartbeat. Her chest felt both heavy and light, her mind spinning with memories and emotions she couldn't name. She whispered into the darkness. Maybe some promises were never meant to end, only to begin again. A soft drizzle painted the streets of Manhattan that evening, blurring the city lights into golden halos. In a quiet corner cafe on Madison Avenue, Amara sat by the window, waiting. Her fingers traced slow circles on the rim of her coffee cup. Outside, people hurried under umbrellas, their reflections bending on wet sidewalks. But Amara's thoughts were somewhere else, replaying that day at the summit, that moment backstage, the look in his eyes when he said her name again. It had been 2 weeks since they met for coffee. Since then, Elijah had called her twice, once to congratulate her on a new partnership, and once just to ask how her mother was doing. Both conversations had been short, polite, careful, but beneath each word, there was a current neither of them could ignore. A quiet pull, something familiar yet new, cautious yet powerful. The small bell above the door chimed, and there he was, Elijah Carter, dressed in a simple navy coat, his presence commanding yet calm. He smiled when he saw her, that same warm smile that softened the air around him. "Am I late?" he asked. "Right on time," she replied. He sat across from her, the dim cafe light reflecting in his eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. It wasn't awkward. It was as if silence itself was catching up with them. Finally, Elijah said, "I wasn't sure you'd say yes to meeting again." Amara smiled softly. "Neither was I, but somehow it felt right." They talked for hours, and time melted around them. Amara told him about her company's new campaign, how she wanted to expand into schools and empower young women to believe in themselves. Elijah listened intently, resting his chin on his hand. "You know," he said, "you remind me of what I used to believe in before business turned into numbers." Amara tilted her head. "What did you believe in?" Elijah looked out the window for a moment. "That people matter more than profit. That kindness can change things. That hope isn't weakness." She smiled gently. "You haven't lost that, Elijah. You just buried it under success." He chuckled quietly. "Maybe you're right." Then he looked at her, really looked, at the way her eyes glowed when she talked, at the quiet strength in her posture. She was no longer the fragile girl from that night. She had become a storm, graceful, unstoppable, alive. Later that week, Elijah invited her to visit his company headquarters. At first, she hesitated. Her world was humble, built from scratch, full of imperfections and late nights. His world was polished glass and tailored suits. But something in his tone made it hard to refuse. "Just a visit," he'd said. "No cameras, no press. Just us." The next day, she arrived at Carter Innovations, a towering glass building that shimmered against the sky. The receptionist greeted her with surprise. Not many people walked in without appointments. Moments later, Elijah appeared, waving off the staff's formality. "You look nervous," he said with a grin. "I'm standing in a billionaire's empire," she teased. "I think I'm allowed to be." He laughed. "Then let me show you something more real." He led her to the rooftop garden, a hidden space above the chaos of the city. There were flowers, benches, and a small fountain softly singing in the breeze. "This," Elijah said, "is where I come when I forget who I am." Amara walked slowly between the rows of lavender and rosemary, the air filled with the scent of calm. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "You built all this." He shook his head. "No, I just funded it. The gardeners built it. The sky finished it." They sat on a wooden bench overlooking the skyline. The sun was beginning to set, streaking the horizon with orange and pink. For a while, they said nothing. Words felt unnecessary. Finally, Amara spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "Elijah, do you ever think about that night? The pharmacy." He smiled faintly. "Every time I question my purpose. Every time I think money's all that matters." She looked at him. "You don't seem like a man who questions himself." He laughed softly. "Then you don't know me yet." Her cheeks warmed at his tone. Calm, sincere, edged with something that felt like admiration. "You know," she said, "if that night hadn't happened, I don't think I'd be here." He turned toward her. "And if that night hadn't happened, I don't think I'd have found my heart again." The words hung between them, fragile and real. Neither tried to explain them. They didn't need to. The city glowed beneath their feet, and for once, both of them felt small, in the best way possible. After that day, they began seeing each other often. Sometimes for dinner, sometimes just long walks through Central Park, talking about life, fear, and the things that success couldn't fix. Elijah found himself laughing again, genuinely laughing, something he hadn't done in years. And Amara, she began to let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved the peace she had spent her whole life chasing. Yet, even as their connection grew, a quiet voice inside Amara whispered caution. He was a man the world watched, a man who lived under lights and expectations. She was a woman who had climbed from nothing, whose scars still whispered reminders of where she came from. Could two souls from such different worlds ever walk the same path? That question lingered unspoken between them, like a soft shadow beneath the light. But when Elijah looked at her, all he saw was truth. And when Amara smiled at him, all she saw was home. For now, that was enough. And as the city fell asleep under a blanket of stars, two hearts that once met by accident were finding their way back, not by fate, but by choice. The morning sun spilled through the tall glass windows of Soulshine Beauty's new Manhattan showroom. It had taken years for Amara to build this. The shelves lined with elegant jars, the gold lettering on the walls, the scent of jasmine and cocoa butter drifting through the air. But today felt different. Something inside her told her the world was about to change again. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Elijah. "Are you coming to the gala tonight?" Amara hesitated before replying. "I'm not sure. Crowds make me nervous." Seconds later, his response appeared. "Then sit with me. I'll make sure it's worth it." She smiled, her pulse quickening. For weeks now, they had grown closer. Dinners, long talks, quiet laughter under streetlights. But tonight would be the first time they'd be seen together publicly. And not just anywhere. At the Global Innovators Gala, a gathering of America's most powerful entrepreneurs, broadcast nationwide. That evening, Amara stood in front of her mirror, smoothing down the deep blue satin of her gown. Her mother watched from the doorway, her eyes shining with pride. "You look beautiful, baby," Gloria whispered. "Like everything you prayed for finally found you." Amara smiled softly, blinking back tears. "I just hope I belong there, Mama." Gloria touched her shoulder. "You belong anywhere your heart walks in first." At the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Plaza, the chandeliers sparkled like captured stars. Cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed. The red carpet shimmered under 1,000 lights. And then, Elijah arrived. The crowd shifted as he stepped out of his black car, tall and composed, every camera turning toward him. He greeted the hosts politely, smiled for a few photos, and then, to everyone's surprise, looked toward the entrance again, waiting. Moments later, Amara appeared. The room seemed to pause. Her skin glowed beneath the golden lights, her curls softly framing her face, her steps graceful yet humble. The photographers whispered, unsure who she was, until Elijah moved forward and offered her his hand. "Glad you came," he said, his voice low and warm. "I almost didn't," she replied. "I'm glad you did." Together, they walked into the hall. The flashes exploded around them like fireworks. Whispers followed in their wake, curious, fascinated, confused. Who was she? Why her? But neither of them looked back. During dinner, Elijah introduced her to several CEOs and philanthropists. "This is Amara Johnson," he said proudly, "founder of Soulshine Beauty, one of the most promising companies in the country." Every time he spoke her name, she could feel the respect in his voice, not as charity, not as debt, but as admiration. Amara tried to stay calm, smiling politely through each conversation. Yet part of her couldn't ignore the stares. She saw the glances from elegant women in diamond necklaces, the quiet judgment from powerful men who didn't expect a woman like her, young, black, self-made, to stand beside Elijah Carter. But Elijah noticed too, and when he saw the faint flicker of doubt cross her eyes, he leaned closer and whispered, "Don't let them touch your peace. You've already outgrown their world." Later that night, when the speeches began, Elijah was called to the stage to receive an award for innovation in global technology. He stood tall under the spotlight, confident and calm. But as he began to speak, his words took a turn no one expected. "I've spent my life chasing numbers, markets, and milestones," he said. "But tonight, I want to recognize something more meaningful, the kind of innovation that doesn't come from money or machines, but from courage." He paused, scanning the audience until his eyes found her. "There's a woman here tonight who reminds me why purpose matters. Years ago, I met her by chance in a small pharmacy in Atlanta. She didn't ask for help for herself, but for her mother. That moment changed how I saw the world." A quiet murmur rippled through the crowd. Reporters leaned forward, cameras flashing. Amara froze, her chest tightening. Elijah continued. "She kept her promise. She built her dream. And now, she's inspiring thousands to believe in themselves. Her name is Amara Johnson." The hall erupted in applause. Amara's heart pounded as every face turned toward her. She wasn't used to attention, not like this. But when Elijah smiled from the stage, she found her courage again. She stood slowly, her hands trembling, and nodded to the crowd. After the ceremony, people approached her, reporters, investors, entrepreneurs, asking for interviews, photos, stories. But Amara could barely hear them. She only saw Elijah walking toward her, his expression calm, his eyes steady. When he reached her, he said softly, "I hope I didn't embarrass you." She shook her head, her voice low. "You made me feel seen." He smiled. That was the point. Later, as the night faded and guests began to leave, they found themselves alone on the balcony overlooking the city. The skyline stretched out beneath them, glittering like a sea of diamonds. Amara leaned against the railing, breathing in the cool air. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "I wanted to," he replied. "The world needed to know the woman who changed mine." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the city lights reflecting in their eyes. Elijah turned toward her. "Amara," he said softly, "you've spent your life lifting others. Maybe it's time someone lifted you too." Her eyes met his, shimmering. And though she didn't speak, the truth was there. In the space between them, in the quiet rush of the wind, in the way both of them felt like they had already been here once before, long ago, under a different kind of light. That night, the city of New York witnessed something that had nothing to do with wealth or fame. It was the moment two souls recognized each other, not as strangers from different worlds, but as equals, finally standing side by side in the light they both had earned. The city had gone quiet. Midnight wrapped New York in silver fog, and the hum of traffic softened into the distance. From the balcony of the Manhattan Grand Hotel, the skyline shimmered like a dream half-remembered, distant, unreachable, yet alive. Amara stood by the railing, her arms folded against the chill. Her gown still caught the glow of the ballroom lights from behind her, but she barely noticed. The gala was over, the applause had faded, and all that remained was silence, the kind of silence that asks questions you can no longer avoid. She heard the door open softly. Elijah stepped out, his suit jacket draped over his arm, his tie loosened, his face calm but unreadable. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply stood beside her, gazing at the lights below. Neither needed to fill the air. Words would come when they were ready. Finally, Elijah spoke, his voice low, almost carried away by the wind. Do you ever stop to think how strange it all is? How one small moment can change everything? Amara turned to him. Every day, she said quietly. That night in the pharmacy, it was supposed to be a tragedy, but it became the start of everything. He smiled faintly. You think it was fate? She shrugged. Maybe not fate. Maybe mercy. They both fell silent again. Below them, the river reflected the city's golden veins, the bridges glowing like paths between worlds. After a while, Elijah took a slow breath. When I saw you tonight, standing in that crowd, glowing like you belonged to the light, it felt like something inside me finally made sense. Amara's gaze dropped to the floor. Elijah, he turned toward her fully. You've changed the way I see everything. Success, purpose, even myself. Her heart tightened. Don't say that. Why not? He asked softly. Because, she began, her voice trembling. I don't want to be anyone's redemption story. I don't want to be the woman who fixes the broken millionaire. He took a slow step closer. And I'm not asking you to be. She met his eyes, dark and steady. Then what are you asking? Elijah's answer came quietly, but every word landed heavy and true. I'm asking for a chance to love you. Not because I helped you once, but because I see you now. All of you. The strength, the scars, the light you carry. Amara turned away, her eyes glistening. The rain began to fall, soft and cold, dotting the marble balcony floor. She whispered, You don't know what you're asking for. My world isn't easy, Elijah. It never was. I don't want easy, he said. I've had easy all my life, and it gave me nothing real. The wind picked up, rustling her hair. She could feel his warmth behind her, close but careful, as if afraid one wrong move would break the fragile peace between them. I've watched you fight your way through storms, Elijah continued, his voice steady. And every time you rise, you remind me what it means to be alive. You're not a story to me, Amara. You're the reason I started believing in something beyond myself. Her breath hitched. For a long time, she had built walls of pride and survival, walls no one had ever been allowed to climb. But hearing those words, something inside her began to crack. She turned slowly to face him. Their eyes met, not the way they had in the gala, not with distance or fear, but with raw truth. Elijah, she whispered, I don't know if I can give you the life you deserve. I don't even know if I can love without breaking again. He reached out, gently brushing his fingers against hers. Then let's break together, he said softly. Maybe that's how we heal. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The rain fell harder now, soaking through their clothes, but neither moved. They just stood there, two souls shaped by pain, drawn by something purer than luck. Amara felt her walls crumble, one by one. She took a slow breath, then whispered, almost to herself, All these years, I thought strength meant walking alone. But maybe strength is letting someone walk beside you. Elijah smiled, not the charming smile of a billionaire, but the quiet, human smile of a man who finally found home. He lifted his hand and tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear. Then let me walk with you. Amara looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with tears and rain. And in that fragile second, before either could think or speak again, she leaned forward and rested her head against his chest. No grand music, no words, just the sound of rain and heartbeats. For the first time in years, Amara didn't feel poor or afraid or small. She just felt seen. And for Elijah, the man who once thought he had everything, that moment became the only thing he ever truly wanted to keep. When the rain finally stopped, the city lights glowed brighter, as if blessing the promise made in silence. Neither of them said goodbye. They simply stood there, knowing the story wasn't ending. It was only beginning again, this time with both of them inside it. Spring arrived in New York with soft skies and warm wind. The city, usually loud and hurried, seemed gentler that morning, as if it knew something special was about to happen. At Central Park, The grass shimmered with dew, the cherry blossoms swayed in quiet rhythm, and the air carried the scent of new beginnings. A white arch stood beneath a large oak tree, decorated with lilies and soft gold ribbons. The chairs were simple, the atmosphere humble yet beautiful. There were no reporters, no flashing cameras, no magazine headlines. Just friends, family, and the sound of laughter carried by the breeze. Amara stood behind a curtain of white fabric, her hands trembling lightly. Her gown was simple, elegant, ivory silk that glowed softly in the morning light. Her hair was pinned with tiny white flowers, and around her wrist was a small bracelet made of woven thread, one her mother had given her the night before. "Keep this," Gloria had said with tears in her eyes. "It'll remind you how far faith can take a person." Outside, Elijah Carter waited under the arch, wearing a black suit and a gentle smile that reached his eyes. For once, he wasn't the billionaire everyone admired, or the man with endless meetings and investments. He was just a man, grateful, grounded, waiting for the woman who had changed the meaning of his life. As the music began to play, the crowd rose quietly. Amara stepped out, her mother holding her arm. The path before her was short, but each step felt like a journey through every chapter of her life, from the rainy night in Atlanta to this bright morning in New York. The guests watched in silence, many wiping away tears as she walked slowly toward Elijah. When their eyes met, time seemed to pause. In that gaze lived everything they had survived: the loss, the faith, the waiting, the miracle of finding each other again. Elijah whispered under his breath, "You kept your promise." Amara smiled softly. "And so did you." The officiant spoke, his voice calm and warm. "Two souls who once met by chance now choose to walk by choice. May love guide you where logic once led you apart." They exchanged vows, simple but powerful. Amara said, "I came from a world where dreams felt too expensive. But you reminded me that kindness is a kind of wealth too. You believed in me when I was invisible, and I promised to believe in us, even when life feels uncertain." Elijah took her hands gently, his eyes glistening. "Years ago, you asked me to help you buy medicine. You told me you'd pay me back when you became rich. But the truth is, you already did. You gave me back my faith, my heart, and the meaning I thought I'd lost. Today, I don't need payment. I only need you." The audience fell silent. The breeze carried their words like a prayer. When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," Elijah stepped forward, his hands trembling as he lifted her veil. Their lips met softly, gently, not in passion, but in peace. The crowd erupted in applause, laughter, and tears. After the ceremony, they walked together down the garden path, petals falling from the trees above. Children ran past them, giggling, carrying balloons that read Soulshine Foundation, the charity they had founded together to help families afford healthcare. Dozens of mothers and daughters stood at the back, holding signs that read, "Thank you, Amara." Amara stopped to greet them, hugging the children, smiling through tears. Elijah watched her from a few steps away, his heart swelling with pride. He thought of the girl he once saw crying in a pharmacy, desperate, frightened, but still brave enough to hope. Now that same girl was the woman everyone looked up to, and she was his wife. As the sun began to set, the newlyweds sat together on a small bench near the lake. The city shimmered in the distance, the water reflecting the colors of the sky, gold, rose, and blue fading into one another. Amara rested her head on Elijah's shoulder. For a while, they said nothing. The silence felt sacred. Finally, Elijah spoke softly. "Do you remember what I said that night in the pharmacy?" Amara smiled without lifting her head. "Don't pay me back with money," she whispered. He chuckled. "That's the one." She looked up at him. "I guess I didn't listen very well. I paid you back with love." He kissed her forehead. "Then I accept the payment." They both laughed, quiet, genuine laughter that only people who've been through storms can share. A few moments later, a small group of children from their foundation approached with flowers. One of them, a little girl with bright eyes, handed Amara a note and said shyly, "My mom said you're the reason she's alive." Amara knelt down, her heart full, and hugged the child tightly. When she stood again, Elijah reached for her hand. "Looks like your kindness keeps multiplying," he said. Amara smiled. "It's all borrowed from you." The wind picked up, rustling the trees, carrying laughter across the lake. Elijah looked out at the water, his arm around her. "You know," he said, People talk about miracles like they happen once in a lifetime. But I think sometimes they happen twice. Once when we least expect it, and once when we finally understand why. Amara looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Then maybe this is our second miracle. As the last light of day disappeared behind the skyline, they sat in silence. No longer two strangers bound by chance, but two souls bound by choice. The city hummed quietly around them, the air full of peace and promise. The story that began with lost money and a small act of kindness had come full circle, from poverty to purpose, from loneliness to love. And somewhere in the quiet of that evening, it felt as if the world itself whispered back to them. Some promises are meant to last forever.